to.
Start the question.
Just getting my sound here. I think that's good.
Okay, can you give us a statement, Betty, about how your ancestors named the Everglades Paheogu and what the word translates to, and perhaps begin by referring to the fact that the Seminole coined the term generations before Marjorie Stoneman Douglas wrote River Grass?
You know, the Miccosukee and Seminole people, when they came to this part of Florida, they saw this vast land with a lot of water and a lot of sawgrass. And our people, our language is very descriptive. So when they name areas, name islands, locations, they give it a name that describes what they saw in that place. So when our people came down to what is now referred to as the Everglades of Florida, they saw the water and they saw the grass, and they always understood that it was a river. So they coined a term, Pahigosle Hayoge, which means river of grass, because they saw grass and they saw the river. So it was a river full of grass. And this term, this is what we knew this area of. And then later on, this young woman started coming out to the Everglades and studying the Everglades. And I met Marjorie Stoneman Douglas many years ago when our tribe held its annual Arts and Crafts Festival for the communities of the outside world to come and visit. She was actually a guest, and she became a friend of the tribe in her activism to protect the area that we loved, which is our homeland, and we were trying to protect. And when she wrote her book, about the River of Grass, a lot of people thought that she came up with that terminology. She actually took what we called the Everglades and took our word and started using it. But our people had the term River of Grass first, because it is actually describing what we saw.
Great. Can you tell us how many generations of your ancestors have called the Everglades home?
That's a long time. You're talking to.
You can be as specific or as general as you'd like.
Okay. For me and my family being here in the Everglades, and we speak of the greater Everglades system, which actually encompasses the Big Cypress National Preserve, Everglades National Park, even the Orlando Kissimmee area. And stories that I got from my grandmothers and my uncles is that Florida was actually our seasonal homeland. When the winter up north Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina areas, when the weather got too cold, they migrated down into Florida and traveled all the way south to the islands. We had seasonal homes looking for food, and that predates, the Seminole Wars, because our stories tell us from creation that we have always been here. We didn't cross the Bering Strait to come to this continent, that we were always here. And there's stories of how Lake Okeechobee was created. So from the beginning of time, when Creator created this planet, we were here in this areas. But you hear stories start talking that predate the 1600s, the 1400s, the 1500s. And I had a grandmother who passed away over 30 years ago at the age of 70, and she talked about the end of the Seminole Wars. So that's a long history. And in my family lineage, sometimes in the history books, they talk about the devil, Sam Jones, a fierce warrior. He was a great grandfather in my family line. So that's our history. A lot of people talk about how Osceola was a fierce warrior, but for our people, Sam Jones was they called him the devil because, it was hard to anticipate in his tactics, and he was very good at warfare.
That leads right into the next question, actually.
Just pause a second for this airplane for the next one.
When you wanted me to tighten up the cord, was it because it was making sound, or
No, it was
getting the
dangling
picture?
into the shot just a little bit. I can crop into that. I just
Yeah.
didn't ruin it, but yeah.
I doing okay?
Great.
Yeah, great.
You're very smooth.
A good interview.
You look like you've done 100 interviews.
I don't know about 100.
Close to that, probably.
The very first time was nerve wracking. After the first time, I was like, okay, I got this.
Kind of like what we do when we get up in front of kids. After a while, it's like, oh, yeah.
More kids.
Yeah. You ready?
I think we're good.
Okay. Can you talk about how the Miccosukee are known as the Unconquered, and how the Everglades provided shelter and sustenance from hostile invaders?
You know, our tribe, along with the Seminole tribe, are the only ones that have never signed a treaty with the United States of America. And back when you had the last Seminole Wars, you know, our people, because they knew this terrain, they were able to hide in the Everglades, and they knew that the horses couldn't come this far south because they would get stuck in the muck. And back in that time, there were areas that were basically the mud. Were like similar to quicksand, and the mosquitoes, and just a very harsh terrain. And I believe up towards, you have around Payne's Prairie and those areas, and sometimes when I travel with my family up the Florida Turnpike, we pass that area and we say, hey, this is where the soldiers couldn't go anymore. They stopped. And that, you know, I was taught that at that moment when the cavalry was looking in over to that water body and over into the Everglades, our people were actually submerged in the water. And there's a reed that you can use, kind of like a snorkel. And they were under the water breathing through that tube, but because they were so hidden in the brush, in the water, that the soldiers couldn't see them, but they could hear the horses and the soldiers talking. And also, it's sad because at that time you had women, children, elderly, everyone was hiding in the water, and mothers had no choice for the survival of the whole people is to submerge their babies under the water. Some lived and some didn't. But I was told that at that time, you know, the cavalry decided, you know what, you know, we're not going to pursue them anymore. And then our people came to the agreement that, you know, you take care of your own people, we'll take care of our own people. And they call it the Buckskin Declaration that was written, of how that memorializes that agreement, that areas, you know, from Gainesville down to South Florida was supposed to be all Indian territory, and the United States government were supposed to keep their people, their settlers, north of that line and never come further down. Of course, did that happen? No. Over time, people came down to the area, and our people would tell Washington, D.C., you know, you would send a message through courier, and when they had the forts here in Florida, is that, you know, these people are coming to their lands, or we don't have enough people to patrol. So over time, those other civilizations started encroaching here. And, you know, our seasonal home became our permanent home. And then throughout time, when more people were coming to settle, our people had to again reach out to the United States government and try to preserve our way of life, because we exist off the land. It's very important to us. And, you know, if the land suffers, we suffer. We feel, you know, just like the land feels our pain, we feel her pain. And it's a very hard conversations to have, to get people to understand our connection with the environment, because, you know, most people can pick up their home and move to another city, move to another state, find another church denomination to attend. Miccosukee is here in the Everglades, and in our time of need, she helped hit us. There was a lot of food in the Everglades. You had a lot of deer, you had a lot of birds, you had a lot of, you know, alligator, a lot of fish, and also a lot of wild fruits and root vegetables that we could eat out here. So she provided us a home. Here we're on a tree island, a hammock. We built our shelters up on the islands. So she provided us, you know, a refuge. And so, and we're always taught, in our time of need, she gave us shelter, and because of her, we were able to survive. So now that it's in her time of need, it's our turn to help her survive, because we understand, in order for our people to be who we are, connected to this land, she needs to exist. And also all the animals and plants need to exist, because we're taught that we're all related somehow, not just to the two-legged animal species, but also to the butterfly, to the snakes, to the turtles, and even to the earth itself, and even to the trees. That's why when we take something to eat, we always ask for permission, and we always explain what we're going to do. We just don't take, and we only take what we need. And that way it's always going to be plentiful for the next generations. But now that you see the Everglades being very polluted with water coming in from the north, and also water flow, too much water when the urban areas don't want their streets flooded, or when the two different rivers, east and west of Lake Okeechobee gets too much water, and when they're having issues, the solution seems to be, let's send it to the Everglades. Yet to Florida Bay needs water, let's just send it down there. Yes, Florida Bay does need water, but it doesn't need polluted water. Also, there are times that because of the water quality requirements that have to be met in Everglades National Park, even tribal lands water quality requirements get ignored. Everglades National Park has 10 parts per billion, and a lot of times they'll use our portion of the Everglades we call it backstacking, store water to meter it out into Everglades National Park. But when you do that, this island that we stand on and live on can get up to 3 feet of water over it when they start storing the water here to meter it out to go in Everglades National Park. What is going to live on this island under 3 feet of water? Then the raccoons don't have a place to go, the possums don't have a place to go, the bear don't have a place to go, the deer don't have a place to go, even the alligators need to get out of water once in a while. So it's a very complex system to understand, but for the indigenous people, it's very simple to understand that you have to have that balance in the environment to help protect it. And if you inundate, I understand from scientists, if you inundate a tree island more than 30 days at a time, the island starts to die, and you start losing islands. And back in, I believe in the 80s, they were quoting 60% tree island loss in the Everglades. Now we're into 2020. It'd be interesting to see what that number is. And the tree islands are a great part in the keeping the ecosystem of the Everglades healthy in that cycle of life. So it's very important to us to help defend, our homeland.
Great answer. Okay, can you describe some
You need to take a little,
maybe.
hold on for a minute.
If I move a little closer, I don't have to extend, cantilever over.
There's a little bit of rumbling. You got to be careful with moving
You're getting
your
some of
hands
that?
just a little bit when you move.
If I'm remembering those questions, I'm thinking, okay, ticked off this one, I ticked off this one.
Yeah, I think you did.
I don't have